Welcome to episode 8 of the Sports Geek podcast. On today's episode, we'll talk to Melbourne Storm's Daniel Pinney on Twitter ads, Origin, and the relationship between sports and YouTube. And we take a look at the NBA draft with Ed White on ABC Grandstand.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for the sports digital marketer. And now, here's your host, who is now wearing only one custom Sports Geek Adidas, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. Yes, very happy to be wearing the one custom Sports Geek Adidas, or Adidas as we say in Australia, DJ Joel. Looking forward to getting version 3 of the Sports Geek shoes once the moon boot comes off in 6 or 7 weeks. But I'm happy to be more mobile, and the fact that I can get down to my local cafe for a coffee has improved my life tremendously. In today's show, we have a good long chat with Daniel Pinney from the Melbourne Storm. As you know from previous episodes of the podcast, we've been working with Twitter ads for ticketing. So I thought it'd be good to catch up with Dan to discuss how they are going, as well as a few more topics around the NRL and Origin. And later in the show, I catch up with Ed White from ABC Grandstand, filling in for Francis this week, to discuss the NBA draft from a TV and digital coverage point of view. But first, here's Daniel Pinney from the Melbourne Storm.
Thank you very much, Dan. Dan Pinney from the Melbourne Storm is joining me here on the Sports Geek podcast to discuss all things sports digital around the Storm and talk about Twitter ads. We've been talking about Twitter ads the last couple of weeks on the podcast, so I thought I'd get Dan in to have a chat about how they've gone, and we can also touch on things Origin. That is, the last two of the Origin games are out of the way, and Dan's been looking at it from a Storm point of view. So welcome, Dan.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So first of all, like the people who have been listening to the podcast have been listening, I should say, about some of the stuff that we've been doing with Twitter ads and in testing them out and seeing what they can offer from selling tickets for the Storm. And in last week's podcast, I talked about the two different types of ads that we've been running. One being the keyword based, so targeting fans who are using specific keywords, and then the other one is targeting fans who are following specific accounts. And so we've been a little bit hamstrung because we don't have the geo-targeting in Australia as yet, so we can only target Australia. We can't target Melbourne, and obviously we've done some things that we don't want to send a promoted tweet to people in Brisbane. They're not going to be able to come to a Storm game. But how have you found the Twitter ads so far, and what kind of results have you seen comparing them to other ads that you've done?
Yeah, it's definitely been a really big learning experience, Sean. It's obviously new for a lot of different brands out there, and we've tried a number of different things around some games in the past and some games coming up. And as you spoke about with the keyword targeting and the accounts targeting, I guess like you said, one of the drawbacks is trying to find the balance of targeting people in Melbourne, because we're pushing tickets and to push coming along to a game. So it's a fine balancing act in that, but we've had some really good results out of it as far as the engagement. So Twitter obviously measure the cost per engagement is the term they refer to, and comparable to our other digital advertising. So we do Facebook advertising, do Google remarketing, and Google keyword targeting as well. And it's definitely comparable. A lot better we've had a lot better results than the Facebook advertising that we've had, which has been really interesting, and it's up there, if not a little bit better than the Google keyword targeting that we've done, and it's definitely better than the Google remarketing as well. So it's been really interesting for us. It's completely new, and we're only just dipping our toe in the water at the moment, but we're trying some new things, and we've been really pleased with the results, definitely.
And I guess I spoke about last week. One of the things we've been doing is doing these limited release or limited only advertising only tweets that seem to be working quite well and allow you effectively to test different copy to find out what fans will click on. Do you want to talk a little bit about just the strategy behind using those and how you think they've gone?
Yeah, we've done it. We actually just tried it the other night with State of Origin 2. We ran some campaigns while the game was on, and we just use those hidden posts, trying to find out what people are engaged by. We tried a couple of different tweets around the game when obviously we've got some Storm players that were partaking in the game, so talking about their performance and being the immediate impact of Twitter advertising worked really well. So because it's all live and it's all as you go, you can actually be there in the back end of the Twitter advertising console and add a new tweet, remove some other tweets, and it's all immediate and it's all real time. So if you see something breaking, and we'll try that with any stories more Melbourne based, and we can actually target those posts. And people, I guess the best thing with the keyword targeting is that people don't know that we're actually targeting various keywords around different stories. So it doesn't actually show the user exactly that we're targeting those things. So we can really play around with it at the back end. It's really dynamic. So yeah, we found some good results for that. And then it's obviously not as the tweets that we put out, we try to be engaging as possible, and those hidden tweets probably aren't as engaging. Obviously, as you know, and as you've explained, that Twitter charge you per engagement for also what's within the tweet. So if you put a hashtag or you put a different username, then you'll actually pay when people click on those hashtags or they click on another user and they follow them. So we're paying for those engagements. So they're really basic tweets, just explaining obviously the game, and then just with a simple link there, and pretty much providing the only option for those people just to click on the link. So they aren't exactly the same as the rest of the tweets that they'll see from our normal account from day-to-day basis, but because they're so immediate and that obviously relates to what's happening in real time, that they're getting some really good engagement. And we found that the other night during State of Origin.
Yeah, and I think the thing, and we'll probably move on to Origin, but the thing with the little Origin campaign that we did, which was effectively one day, it does really show, one, how easy it is to burn through the cash from a Twitter budget point of view. I mean, it's great. You're getting the people clicking through to your ticketing site, and you've obviously got to track the actual ticketing sales on the other side of it. But it is very easy and very quick for people to be clicking on those ads and coming through. So I don't know if that's just related to the Storm, because we haven't got other things to compare it to. But we definitely can see that if you want to do a quick one-day campaign, it actually works a little bit better than trying to spread it over. We haven't wouldn't even try to spread it over a week, because those tweets are going to date pretty quickly.
Yeah, and with vendors, we were setting up the pacing options. We're still testing at the moment. I'm not sure whether it might be actually affected by when you launch an actual campaign as well. So we've generally launched when we've set up campaigns towards the end of the afternoon, and if we set a daily budget, Twitter actually grabs that budget and then tries to burn it up until midnight that night. So it resets at midnight every night, Australian time. So if you set that daily budget, then it can quickly burn through that cash in the first few hours. But in saying that, it is effective for a short-term campaign, such as the couple of hours around the Origin game that we ran the other night. So it worked really well. Yep.
So moving on to Origin, we had you on the podcast on halftime talking about Origin around Cam Smith's milestone game and the Man of Steel jersey. We've now had 2 Origin games. Just from a social point of view, and watching it from the Melbourne Storm account, how do you think the NRL have gone, activating Origin from a social perspective?
Yeah, look, it's been obviously a huge improvement for the NRL, which credit to them. They've put in a lot of work to improve their digital presence, and as you would have seen from their account, they have their mission control of the last 2 Origin, and Origin being as big as product it is now. They've had some really good results from it. I know the guys up there have been doing a really good job. So it's been interesting from their point of view as far as what content they're pushing out. But I'm sure you can, also relating back to that Twitter ad point of view, I'm sure you're going to talk about is the Origin hashtag. As we noticed the other night with the Twitter ads that Sportsbet managed to put some money behind it. So it's interesting seeing the different brands compete during a really peak time for Twitter while Origin is on.
Well, yeah, that's what was a bit of a concern for me. I actually thought that either the NRL had promoted Origin. I thought it was a great idea. I actually did suggest to the guys at Twitter to if they really want to solidify the Australian market to put some Twitter dollars and some ad dollars behind some key hashtags like Go Socceroos when the Socceroos were playing, or the Wallabies when they were playing, to stop that confusion and really get everyone to rally behind it. But it's pretty obvious that sponsors are going to get on board and effectively hijack those type of hashtags. We saw that Sportsbet guys do a really good job, and I'll put a link in the show notes with their big ad underneath the flight path between Melbourne and Sydney with the hashtag rooting for Oz. Very much Australian humour, but they've got a lot of press for it. They've got a lot of outrage and a lot of news reports. But yeah, they went and bought the promoted trend for the day. And if you clicked on the Origin, it would have sent you to Sportsbet. So it's one of the dangers, I guess, sports teams are going to have if they don't keep control of their own hashtags, and if they don't, get their sponsors on board to promote, their hashtags, because, it may be a case that, many more sponsors will now just go and steal your hashtag effectively by using advertising. And that was a concern early on with Facebook ads, where people could just say, I want to target Melbourne Storm fans or Origin fans, and I won't bother becoming a sponsor because I can target them via Facebook ads. So that's a real concern. It makes the sports marketer's job all that much harder. So, we had the case of Sportsbet, and in a sense, they actually did a good job in that they were at least promoting the hashtag that the league was going to do. I mean, and if you're going to do a promotion, it makes sense to be sort of leveraging off that hashtag. One of the ones we did see was actually with an NRL partner. Was quite strange to see, and I did send out a tweet. Telstra News, or at Telstra News, was the Twitter account, which is one of Telstra's sub Twitter accounts, was actually promoting a Twitter battle, which again would be great, except they were running with a different hashtag for Queenslander. And the NRL was pretty clear in sending out here's the hashtags, guys. Origin is the hashtag, Up the Blues is the hashtag, and Queenslander in its shortened form was the hashtag. And there was a little bit of Telstra News promoting the different hashtag, which it just splinters the sports fans who are online and just makes more confusion around the hashtag. So I thought that was a bit of a silly move by Telstra, especially being a partner of the NRL. Now, they're still trying to develop their fan base, because really it was a Telstra News account where you're meant to get product updates. So it's not really somewhere where you would expect to be getting Origin news. So it was a bit of a strange play on that sense. What are your feeling? You would have seen potentially ambush marketing from a Twitter point of view sometimes with the Storm. You might have brands going and writing on your Facebook page, or people jumping on tweets. How do you sort of look at that as a guy, running the digital at the Storm?
Yeah, I noticed that on Wednesday as well, that the Telstra News promoted tweet was there, and we actually noticed it during the day when we sent out a tweet using Pop Tip just to see what the fans were voting on between New South Wales and Queensland. And in the Pop Tip options, we actually put both of the hashtags that we saw out there, the Queenslander in the short form, the QLDer, and then obviously in the long form as well. And majority was the QLDer, but it was interesting that people were still using that long form hashtag. So it was just confusing a bit of the market as well, which was disappointing, I think, from NRL's perspective as well. But I did keep an eye on the Telstra News account throughout the game as well, and they did some of the stuff. They were running. I don't know if you caught. They were running with Snappy TV, which allows. I don't know if you've seen it, and you probably did catch it during the night. But they were effectively showing live clips. I mean, as their right, as a rights holder, digital rights holder for the NRL, and they hold similar rights with the AFL. So it'd be interesting to see if they continue that in the AFL space. But Snappy TV is something that the NBA has used with some of its partners. It allows vision and replays quite quickly. If we put up in a social sense, it's using Twitter cards.
So if you click on the link, boom, you can see, there's Origin, the first Origin try, that kind of thing. It makes for very compelling social content. But yeah, it was a little bit strange to see that coming off, what I would see as a sub or a, secondary account for Telstra, when it would have been maybe better to run that kind of campaign, especially when you've got a social media command center, which I thought was a great setup. And I thought there was they did take a few pot shots on Twitter saying it was a bit of overkill, but I'm sure a lot of leagues would love to have that kind of setup around their major events and finals. But I thought it was just quite strange that Snappy TV content wasn't being pushed through the NRL channels. Now, it could have been, well branded by Telstra. Maybe, would have been good to actually put it out on the Telstra handle, if you really want to showcase, this is what we're doing with the NRL. It was a little bit off Broadway for mine, when you're trying to do that kind of innovation. And again, they were using promoted tweets and Twitter ads to push those tweets out.
So they're obviously putting a bit of effort into it, Sean, using that Snappy TV and using a promoted tweet. So yeah, I find it really interesting that it was coming from that Telstra News account and not from the official NRL account, which, like you said, had that mission control center and were doing a great job throughout the game as well.
But but hopefully, at least from the Australian landscape, and if we look at the States, there are many digital managers like yourself that they get frustrated when there are restrictions around video. Video seems to be a very contentious point with both the TV rights holders and the video rights holders on what you can share and how much you can share, whether it be social it's still the new frontier. It's probably not in half of the agreements that have been put together if they're over a couple of years old. But the big one in the landscape is YouTube, and that's the one that's constantly a battle. I know it's been a battle in the AFL and in the NRL of how much match footage can be put on YouTube. And for mine, I like that. There is similar restrictions in the NBA, in the NFL. It's very restricted because they've done that really big deal. They've taken the cash rather than they've taken the cash from Verizon, I think it is, rather than being able to free up their video. But for mine, the more video content that you can put on a channel like YouTube, which still remains to be the number one video platform in the world. We're not all jumping to watch 6-second videos and 15-second videos on Vine and Instagram. If you want to watch video, you'll go to YouTube. What's your feeling of how you would like, as if I was your digital wishmaster from a video point of view, what would you like to see options for yourself with the Storm and access to online video and how your fans would like to consume it?
Oh, well, I'd love to start using that Snappy TV for a starter, Sean. That'd be fantastic throughout the games. I thought that was really engaging. But, look, it's a huge issue for clubs at the moment and for the league as well, in balancing what's on the club website as opposed to what's on YouTube, where we are restricted across the league as far as what we put on YouTube at the moment. And it's getting to the point now where we've got to stand up and really take notice of YouTube at the moment. I saw recently the MLB, they've been staunch against YouTube for many years, and just recently they finally bit the bullet and started putting highlights on YouTube and really delved into it. So that was really interesting from that aspect. We've seen some really good results from our YouTube channel. It is hard for us on YouTube because we can't use match footage on YouTube at all. And we're limited as to how much we can actually use on our own website as well. So we can only use a certain amount per video clip, but we can't use any on YouTube. But we've seen some really good results from YouTube, such as early this year when we were over at the World Club Challenge in the UK, and Billy Slater and Cam Smith were on the sideline just mucking around at the end of training one day, and having to get the video camera out, and Billy Slater slotted this amazing goal from the sideline, and I knew straight away it was going to be a really impressive video. People love Billy; they love to watch what he's doing. He's one of the most searched athletes in Australia, and on Google, and also on YouTube as well. So we took the approach, I sort of had to think about how we were going to push this video out to maximise its impact. And on I think it was February 17, we pushed it out onto our website. We're going to push it out there first and give it first right to make sure people are coming through to our website. And as predicted, it went absolute gangbusters. I think in the first week it had 6,080 views, I think, in that first week. But what was really interesting, and one thing that YouTube does really well, is that it's obviously with being Google's partner, the virality of videos as well, and that a video can it actually extends its lifetime. So we saw that video on our website in that week go from the 6,080 views to the next week actually just go down to a simple 46 views in that whole week. So it was a staggering drop, and the lifetime of our videos is really short on our website. So we gave the video on our website a good 24 to 48 hours worth of airtime before we then put it onto YouTube. As predicted again on YouTube, in the first day it got just over 2,000 views. But then what was really interesting, and from then, and it's still up there, and I've just checked it before, it's got, I think, just over 53,047 views since February of this year. And while there was that immediate impact at the start, it's actually been maintained ever since then. And so that video on our website, when we first uploaded it, I think has totaled just under 7,000 views in total since February. And on YouTube, it's just gone over 53,000. So it's a real obviously interesting case study in the comparison between putting video on YouTube and putting video on our website. We'd love to be able to put action footage on our website, but obviously, yeah, there's a balance there from the commercial aspect, and that every digital manager, not just in the NRL but around the world, has to compete with as well.
Yeah, I mean, and that does, and if there's fans listening and trying to figure out why can't we put it up, it does come down to one of the key terms in sports is monetization, as everyone tries to make money off what they're trying to do. So it's the ads that you can put on the videos on your club site, and the advertising you obviously have around your site. But there are other opportunities for monetization. Is obviously putting club and sponsor branding inside your videos, having specific videos, that are brand sponsored, that you can put the top and tail and effectively put your adverts embedded into the YouTube ads. And then the other option is obviously getting the ad revenue from the YouTube videos themselves. And, depending on the deal that has been done by the league for the clubs, it will decide where that money goes. And I think the case in both Australian football codes and the AFL and NRL, that money, that monetization from the YouTube channel actually goes back to Telstra as the rights holder. They've paid the big bucks to get it, so they've got to try to recoup their costs in some way. Just a bit of a backstory, and I know I've told you before, just a little bit of backstory on YouTube trying to get into sports, and we're definitely seeing it more and more. But if we sort of go back to ancient history from a digital point of view, if we look at the NBA, and I've got this story from some of my friends in the NBA, when the NBA was looking at its current, or it's not its current, it's the deal before the last one, when they first took NBA.com out, and they eventually ended up with TNT. But initially they did have some initial discussions with YouTube about YouTube and Google becoming partners with NBA.com, with the vision of the video is the key platform. And at the time, YouTube and Google weren't ready. They just did not think that was the space they wanted to be in. They said, thanks, but no thanks. We don't do sports. We don't do sports websites. And in the end, the NBA did a deal with TNT and Turner, who were at that time a TV station. They weren't a sports. They weren't primarily a sports website business. And TNT have done an absolutely amazing job building out the NBA side, and they've got some really great video options there as far as streaming and the work they've done with the Game Time app. YouTube actually came back to the NBA, I think it was about 18 months or 2 years later, and said, "Yeah, hey, we're ready to talk." While the NBA was in the middle of a in the middle of a 5-year deal, so it was a little bit too late. But that sort of ventured, that sort of pushed YouTube into, what they did with the 2020, and where they initially did live streaming of the 2020. We see them now really pushing hard into the sports space. I actually had some initial discussions to talk to YouTube to say, they should be involved in discussions with the AFL and the NRL and use that as a platform to give them a platform to go back to the NBAs and the NFLs of the world. They didn't want to get involved at that level either. But YouTube is still an amazing place to capture video and finding that balance, both from a commercial point of view as well as, delivering to the fan, because, it's pretty obvious just from those numbers. And while you were talking, I put in Billy Slater kick YouTube, and it was the third one on Google. So, it just shows you, the options that you have. And then what you've got to be able to do is make sure you can leverage that. And you can do things like putting your own adverts that send people back to your site, whether it be a membership site or back to your website, making sure that, putting on annotations to videos to say, subscribe to our videos, come to our channel, check us out, or daisy chain that really popular video with another one. We did something similar with the Perth Wildcats, who actually are allowed to put match footage on their YouTube channel, because that's their deal with the NBL, the National Basketball League here in Australia. But their biggest video was when Nick Natanui from the West Coast Eagles was there at halftime and decided to dunk over someone at the halftime break. And so again, perfect video. You not often a video is going to go viral, but occasionally you can pick it with a freakish goal by Billy Slater, or Nick Natanui dunking over a water boy at a basketball game. Putting it up on YouTube and activating it as best as you can really make sure YouTube's a really great channel. And I think it's just a matter of time, because even if you look at the numbers from the ICC and the case study from YouTube, they pretty much said fans who watch, and this is one for the broadcasters as well, even the TV guys, fans who watched clips on YouTube watched more cricket overall, both the combination of YouTube and TV. So, the myth, and I completely believe that it's a myth of, if we put our vision up on YouTube, they won't come to our site and they won't watch our games, and they won't buy our products, or, they won't buy our Game Pass because they can watch clips. I think products like NBA Game Pass, the fact that the MLB, like you said, have loosened their rights on their video and put something on YouTube, just proves that, you give fans a taste and wanting more, or they're going to want to upgrade themselves to a higher end product, and that might be a live match center on your website, watching the games via your mobile. So I think it's, gradually that's loosening, and I think, the fact that, you're seeing, Telstra, especially in your space with the NRL, showing live footage in game, that'll be really interesting discussion to say, how did it go? Did people watch it? What if we gave those options to clubs? Because we know we've got those super avid fans that will really consume that content, and it might be just a matter of, a Telstra pre-roll or branding that tells the fans that it's brought to you by, the right partner, that might see that wish may come true in the future.
Yeah, and we're finding, obviously, being a Melbourne club in a non-rugby league state, for us being on YouTube, it's as much about promoting our brand as anything else, and promoting our game. We've got some of the biggest superstars in the world, but unfortunately we can't show them playing on the field to other Melbourne people that might be on there watching AFL or another sport in there. So, as you spoke about, escalating them along that fan ladder, where they might just watch a clip on YouTube, but they might eventually buy a ticket or a membership down the track as they really get interested in the game. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting space down the future, and see what happens with it. But yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today.
You're listening to Sports Geek Podcast. Send us a tweet to @SportsGeek.
Thanks again to Dan for catching up. One thing we didn't cover was the brand protection side of YouTube, which is another reason for sports to be, in my belief, to be uploading more content, as there's many illegal uploads up on YouTube. Now, they do have the fingerprinting technology to help protect the rights of the rights holders, but one of the ways of doing that protection is actually making the fans go to your official channels. So it's definitely a watch this space, and still a developing market for sports digital managers as the rights and the agreements sort of catch up to one another. The NBA draft was held this week, and one of the benefits of work from home as I recover from the Achilles surgery is having ESPN on in the background as I work away. Currently, Jamie, Curtis and myself are looking at a bit of an NBA draft recap on what social media and digital initiatives some of the NBA teams went with over the draft, so keep an eye out for that on sportsgeekhq.com. But this week I caught up with Ed Wyatt, who was filling in for Francis Leach on ABC Grandstand, to discuss the NBA draft and why it presents such a big opportunity for the NBA, but also the teams involved, and also what the AFL could learn from it with its own AFL draft that it holds after its season. Here's Ed Wyatt on ABC Grandstand.
But now it's time to do a little looking into the future, I guess the present, but also the future, and talk to our old friend Sean Callanan, the sports geek. How are you, Sean?
I'm good, thanks, Ed.
Other than your leg, your
the
Achilles.
The Achilles is coming on well. I'm glad to be back in the studio. The crutches have served me well, so I'm a little bit more mobile, so starting to get back to normal.
It's funny. I always, when I say sports geek, I always have to force myself to say it because it's had this kind of negative stereotype, and everything you're doing is far from negative. It's incredibly positive.
Well, actually, there was actually an article on the internet where I apply my trade that someone actually compared geeks and nerds and actually called sports geek an oxymoron. For a second there, I was offended. I said, "What do you call me?" But yeah, they're sort of two diametrically opposed things. The jock and the geek. But from a sports digital point of view, it's sort of, it's the right fit for me and what I do and what people are doing now.
It's very catchy, I must say, and I agree. There is that bit of an oxymoron thing that actually works really well. NBA draft was yesterday. We talked a little bit about it in here. We spoke with somebody in New Zealand about Steven Adams, the big Kiwi who was picked. From a digital standpoint, what sort of things did you see as this sort of went on?
Yeah, well, I was watching again. I think ESPN do a terrific job from the TV coverage point of view, and and the fact that they're starting to tell that story. They're interviewing the players. They've got the prepared clips and stuff like that. From an individual team point of view, especially the lottery teams, the guys that have had a couple of months off, we've just gone through amazing playoffs. The NBA draft's a little bit strange compared to other leagues. There's no break. There's no we're craving for information. They've pretty much come straight off a massive finals and then straight into the draft. But we've got all these lottery teams that have been planning activations and promotions and really building buzz around these new players coming in. So the TV coverage provides a really good launching point where people are, following along. There's lots of trades, which makes the night more exciting. But, they've got the people talking about the draft picks and that. But after your team's picked, you're like, I want more information. So it really plays into the hands of the teams that are getting those high picks. So, the Cavs had the number one pick. The Suns were very active yesterday. Even, the Portland Trailblazers were doing stuff with their Rip City draft and trying to get people, the Timberwolves did their live stream. So most of the teams actually aren't at the draft. Like they'll have a representative that makes sure they get the player, they put a hat on and they get some shots, Instagram, those kind of things. But most of the activity is back at the team's venue with either a fan event. So a few of the teams had fan events where they were getting season ticket holders to rally around, and obviously tying digital into that. And then the other thing is how can we make some money? So whether it's, the Cavs, the Bobcats put out a special season ticket offer straight after their number 4 pick. Welcome Cody Zeller. Right. Here's the season ticket offer. Because again, they know that's where the traffic goes. Once you've read everything you can read on ESPN and you found out that there's no, in this case, Michael Jordan's not going to do a trade of some sort, you go, well, what are they going to do? So you go to their source of information. So the teams at different levels, or the teams did different activations, or set up their website in a different way. They all had some sort of draft central. The Kings have it with a sort of a live blog format, sharing all their content. Yep. As I said, the Timberwolves had that live stream with the talking heads talking about everything happening, and they had trades going on. So it would have been, if you wanted to get the Wolves' point of view, that's where you'd go. So. Digital is, it's almost nirvana to a certain degree for the teams, because you get this, immediate interaction with your fans, which you haven't, especially the ones not in the playoffs. You haven't had an opportunity to engage with them for a couple of months, because everyone's focus has been on the teams that are winning. So it's about that. It's about building their engagement and, starting them back to getting them back in the season, getting season tickets, but then also explaining who these guys are,
absolutely,
and starting that storytelling side of things, and that's to us, social. That's what social provides really well. And that's what digital provides.
Yep.
And that should flow from the TV coverage. So I had some good discussions with people on Twitter yesterday, sort of comparing the NBA draft, which had 3 million people watch it yesterday, with the AFL draft, which is sort of like a baby giraffe over the last couple of years. It's sort of stumbled, of slowly walking and trying to find its way. Thank God they've got rid of the reverse draft, announcing number 10, 9, 8.
I'll never forget when I first saw that. I was in disbelief. My eyes just went, what are they doing?
Yeah, so, and we've discussed the NFL draft, which has now become a 3-day event, and the first round is prime time. So, I think there are lessons there. Yes, I understand the fact that from an AFL point of view, people don't know the players, and the TAC Cup and the under-18s don't have as much exposure as the NCAA, so you don't have that familiarity.
No.
But all the more reason to really bring in that storytelling element to say, this is this, Jeremy Cameron, all these young kids that we're just really finding out about when their name is called out, have some sort of package prepared that profiles them, actually interview them, have someone who actually knows who he is, or talk to a recruiter, that kind of thing. So then you can walk away, because from a club point of view, at this point when you're getting your draft pick, whether the kid's going to play or not, and a lot of those guys who were interviewed last night were wearing their hats, and we did see the Wizards pick wearing the Google Glass. I haven't.
Oladipo.
So I'll be interested to see. I actually wanted to see if he was going to tap the side of his glasses as he shook hands with David Stern. I thought that would have been a top pick. I thought David Stern as well did a terrific job in his 30th
amazing
30th draft, playing the heel, pretty much telling the crowd that. Boos are a form of encouragement and sign of respect, and just giving it up.
How about the pause before he announced the number 1 pick? That was absolutely brilliant, because he knew that it was a surprise. It was Anthony Bennett. No one had picked Anthony Bennett, so he did the old, with the number 1 pick. Pause.
Yeah, exactly. He learned his best from Ryan Seacrest there, I think. It's like as American Idol is.
Very much so.
And I thought the NBA did a really good job at the end of that first round when he did announce his last pick. And they brought out Hakeem Olajuwon, which was David Stern's first pick.
In that same suit.
And he's wearing the same tuxedo. So, I'm sure, I don't think Charles Barkley or someone like that would be able to fit into the same suit they wore on draft night. But that was a nice touch by the NBA, and the fact that automatically when Adam Silver started taking the picks, they started booing him just to continue the tradition.
Yes, it does. As far as that AFL draft, I think it's interesting because as we see expansion, Greater Western Sydney, Gold Coast, these younger kids are more marketable than they were 5 years ago. They're playing more. So, you have to know who these people are. I think 5 to 10 years ago, I think it was more of like, when there weren't as many teams. These Greater Western Sydney kids.
And definitely, and definitely we're now in this fantasy football culture.
Well, of course.
So they're all the fans that, it does cater for the diehards. But then there's, the diehards will be going, is this guy going to be worth 180 grand in Supercoach or Dream Team or whatever they play? And so they're looking at that sense. But again, it's also that club level. Like, I'm a Collingwood fan, or you're a Hawthorn fan, or you're a Essendon fan, and you're seeing this young kid and you're going, well, what's he like? Who's he going to be like? Will he play next year? You want to know that story. So the TV can tell some of that story, and, they have the opportunity to do that better. But then it is the clubs that get to expand that story, whether they do it on the night or going onwards. That's where, digital can offer it, because, the general media, Grandstand will talk about the top 5 picks, the TV and that will talk about the top 10, the papers will cover them all. But if you want to dig down and get that in depth and, your team's going to have 6 new guys, you want to see what the makeup is, that's the opportunity that digital offers because, it's effectively your niche. You're catering for your fans. So, the NBA guys, do it very well, and we're going to profile next week on sportsgeekhq.com what types of content worked well. So how many Facebook posts put out, the whole, did they use Instagram video, did they use Vine video, which one of those were they going with, which one was with the fans, because social is great to get the buzz around, but then again you want to drive people back to your website. You want to pull them back in and say, hey, sign up for this competition or become a season ticket or sign up for our e-news, that kind of things, because then when November comes around, hopefully they start becoming a customer and not just someone that's, double tapping a photo on Instagram and,
exactly.
and not attending a game.
Speaking with Sean Callanan, Sports Geek, talking about the NBA draft in a way. A couple things I noticed, how quickly highlights and things were up. As soon as the team picked somebody on Twitter, bang, there was a link from an SB Nation or somewhere like that already with a YouTube highlight or something. And one thing the Blazers did, and they picked C.J. McCollum, and before they even had any articles about him, there were like 15 pictures of him in action. I mean, I think that was the Oregon Live site, actually. It wasn't the Blazers site, but it was the local newspaper, which is fantastic. I mean, in the past, all right, let's wait 5 minutes while we tap out a story on C.J. McCollum. Bang, here's 10 photos of him playing.
And that's the pressure of, social media and breaking the news. So the teams want to be in front of that as much as they can. So, they would have all done, profiles of all the guys. They would have been given some sort of list, and that, we're talking about a list of 15 guys, especially when, a guy like Anthony Bennett goes 1 and everyone's mock drafts just go out the window, and there's guys falling and guys rising up in the draft. So, that's just the everything is now. So they've got to get something up. So that's where social does help. It's like, hey, click, there's a photo. We've prepped it, it's going out. Oh, stay tuned. We're going to be up next. Then he's going to be on the, live chat, or he's going to be on a, Google Hangout or whatever they were going to do to get a bit more information. But there is a lot of pressure. I know when I was hanging out with the Timberwolves guys in 2011, the pressure to get everything out and the long night that they put in, and then today will be just as hectic because now all the draft picks actually do turn up.
Exactly,
so
that's the next stage.
Local press and all that kind of stuff.
Sean, we got to move on, but it's good to see you. Thanks for hobbling in. Really,
no problems.
It. Sean Callanan, Sports Geek, with us here on ABC Grandstand Breakfast.
Find all Sports Geek podcasts at sportsgeekhq.com/SGP.
That's it for another Sports Geek podcast, episode 8. You can catch the show notes at sportsgeekhq.com/8. A big thank you for the iTunes reviews that have been coming in. Thank you, Brian, Pat, Ben, Curtis, for the reviews on iTunes. You can simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes to write a little review, give us some feedback. I know this episode has been a little bit longer, but hopefully you found the longer discussion with Dan of interest, but please let me know what kind of length and what kind of things you want on the podcast. This is built for you guys. Also, just a reminder, if you didn't catch, episode 4 of the podcast was actually made for TV and picked up by ABC News, so you can see an interview with myself and George Rose on that if you go to sportsgeekhq.com/4. And I've got some really good guests coming up. I reviewed my contacts over the last couple of weeks while I've been on the couch, and I've tagged over 60 people in the UK, US and Australia. So I've got plenty of people queued up to talk to in future podcasts. At the moment, still keeping it as a weekly podcast. So finishing up, for the sounds of the game, please, if you're at a game, please record some sound. This one I've dived back into the archive when I was at the Dallas Mavericks Lakers game at the American Airlines Centre on my first Sports Geek trip. I was lucky enough to be invited up to the suite by then CEO of the American Airlines Centre, Brad Main, and I saw Dirk Nowitzki score his 20,000th NBA point, and this was the crowd's reaction. Until next week, my name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek, and I will talk to you soon. Cheers.
Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.